everything. Dicky and Tits. You're listening to the Dicky and Tits Strength Solves Everything podcast.
Hey, Ross C, what's good, buddy?
It's official. It's a real podcast
It's
now.
a real podcast. We actually have an official song. Keith Hilly, you the man. We love it.
Thank you.
Everybody who's listened to it so far loves the song.
That's great.
It's been 3 weeks, Rossi. 3 weeks since we did the last episode of the Dicky and Tits Strength Solves Everything podcast. You've been busy. I've been busy. We tried to get something going for the last UFC event, and we tried to get our good friend Medic involved in it, and all kinds of stuff went down, but we didn't end up getting it going. So we're going to do a post-fight, even though it's 2 weeks after the fact. We're going to do a post-fight recap, I guess.
There's so
we'll
much interesting stuff to talk about anyways.
In the meantime, though, 3 weeks has gone by. Rossi, catch us up. What's been going on in your life for the last 3 weeks?
You know, the seasonal depression, rolled my ankle, but I'm doing okay. You know,
okay. You've been looking good in the gym, happy, smiling.
Yeah, the body's lean, so the diet's under control. I was joking around a couple weeks ago, and I took a step onto one of the battle ropes, and my ankle rolled and went forward. So there was a lot of crunching going on. You know, the side touched the floor. Oh man, it was just brutal.
Yeah.
So
I've done one of those
I
before.
rolled it pretty bad. I thought I was going to be out of commission, but I went right into the Atlantic Ocean because I live right near there. And I stood in the freezing water, which is not really that freezing yet, right? Maybe
No, it's not that cold
50
yet.
degrees.
I'm out there surfing still.
Nah, it's not too bad.
Wetsuits. We're starting to put them on now. It's getting thicker, but it's not bad yet.
No. So I stood in the ocean for a couple minutes, cooled it off. I've been taking CBD oil with fish oil. There's actually a product out there. It's together. So it's a
tonic through our girl.
It's not Brittany's tonic CBD. Although I use that on my muscles because, you know.
We have some in the closet right now over
When
here.
they get a little sore, I put a little bit of that on, and that feels great. So thank you, Brittany, for producing such a great product. But another company I have an account with, Designs for Health, produces a CBD oil that's coupled with just about the best fish oil that's on the market. And I've been taking that about 20 milligrams every night, and you know, you don't have to read or look too far to find too many testimonials on how good CBD oil is for reducing inflammation in your body. So I've been doing that. There's a little bit of swelling left. It's been about 5 days or so. But, I mean, I can jump. I can run. Not that I'm jumping or running, but I can demonstrate and jump and run. It feels good with lateral movement. It's not even that sore. It's only when I stretch my ankle through the motion that it was injured that it actually still feels pretty sore. So I'm doing okay with that, and you know, the days are getting shorter here on the Northeast.
They sure are.
How's the surf?
Surf has actually been really good. This is probably one of the best, most consistent seasons that I can remember in a while where on Long Island, we don't get waves in the summertime here. This summer, we actually had some fun days. September was really fun. Nothing crazy huge, but really fun days, really consistent.
Where do you mostly surf out of? I live, for anyone listening who doesn't know, I live in Long Beach, and I'm right at a beach entrance, and that's generally where
I surf right in front of your house a lot, and I won't say a lot of the spots because sometimes these spots kind of go...
Just South Shore,
people don't pay attention, and you might get a nice spot to yourself. One spot I'll name because it doesn't matter. Everybody knows it, but I surf Lido a lot. It gets mobbed. Headed out last weekend. I headed out to Montauk with a couple buddies of mine, and we scored it pretty good out there. Except for the fact that there was like 12 longboarders who had no clue. I don't know, man, if etiquette is just different out there, but these guys were either clueless or just didn't know what they were doing out there.
Dangerous.
Dangerous, you're not even lying. These guys paddled for every single wave that came, never checked who was coming, dropped in, boards flying all over the place. My buddy Moondog, who I went out surfing with, who's usually, he's a quiet guy in the water. He doesn't say anything. It's a point break, so it's a long breaking wave. And Moondog took off from the point, and this guy dropped in on him maybe about 100 yards down more inside on the point, and I heard Moondog the entire way screaming. He must have said "yo, yo, yo" about 50 times, and this guy just kept on going. No concern whatsoever. So I don't know if it's just lack of etiquette out there or just lack of people caring, but
Knowledge.
it was a shit show scene.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm leaving for Nicaragua in a week and a half.
That's incredible.
So waves will be warm, waves
Yeah.
will be big, and no jackasses on longboarders that I'm going to have to worry about down there.
So you used to work in Nicaragua, right? Did you?
I was a surf guy down there for 2 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
So going back to hang out with my boys who own the surf camp,
Okay.
Tony, he probably will never listen to this podcast because he's down in Nicaragua where it's not as easy to just pull up things as it is here. When I lived down there, there was barely power. There was no TV.
There's no YouTube. in Nicaragua.
Yeah, no phones, no internet.
You know, the thing that I learned, I went to Costa Rica 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was learning about the areas that were surrounding it. And they said Nicaragua is just about the poorest country in South America.
The poorest
Yeah,
in Central
but
America.
they said-
and one of the poorest in the world.
Yeah, but they said they have the lowest crime rate by like far.
Costa Rica actually has a much higher crime rate than Nicaragua
Yeah.
does, which is kind of
So
funny.
that's what I mean. Costa Rica, Nicaragua has the lowest crime
Yeah.
rate. And Costa Rica seemed pretty safe,
It's very safe, but
but it's still higher than Nicaragua.
it's funny. And meanwhile, when I moved down there, people were like, "What are you doing? That country's crazy. You're gonna get in trouble down there. You're gonna get shot down there." Like, you don't see any of this stuff. I mean, listen, are there places in the main city of Managua that I wouldn't go like stumbling around drunk at night? Yeah, there's plenty of them, but there's also that in New York City, So,
Sure.
but people go all crazy about it being unsafe down there. I lived down there for a long time, and I've been traveling down there for 12 years. I've been going down there. I've never seen anything like crazy. There's some stuff going on down there right now. There's been a lot of protesting and stuff, and I guess some of the protests have gotten a little violent because the people down there are definitely not happy with who their president is, Daniel Ortega. They don't want him as their president, so they've been protesting. Unfortunately, when the protests get violent, it's different. The rules aren't the same down there. They'll shoot people down there. They don't want you protesting. The military will just start shooting at people. So it does get a little bit crazy. And I know for a while this trip was. I don't know if I was ever gonna not do the trip, but we were thinking about other options. There's a way you can fly into Managua and then charter a quick 20-minute puddle jumper from Managua right to the beach. There's a smaller airport at Playa Guana, which is right by the surf camp. So you can avoid all that. It's really just the cities. It's not out by the beach where any of this stuff was happening. But it's calmed down. It's not... All that stuff has calmed down, so it's not really...
And it's easy to maintain your diet while you're down there?
Oh, my God. So when I lived down there, the first year I was down there, I moved down at 185 pounds. And you know me, at 185, there was no fat on my body.
Yeah.
1 year as a surf guide, the first year I came home, I weighed 165 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
You cannot, so I can't. I don't know about other people, but I ate constantly all the time. I mean, the guys who own the surf camp, they don't care what I eat or drink. I can drink 50 beers a day. He never would say a word to me. I could eat all day long, never say a word. And I did. It's just you're surfing for 10 hours a day. There's a lot of current down there. The waves are big. You're paddling around constantly. The food is healthy, so I'm constantly exercising with all the paddling, and I'm eating healthy. My body just could not keep on weight. So I tried, but lack of the combination of the amount of just exercise burning calories, not lifting weight, and eating healthy for somebody like me with my metabolism, that's a recipe for weight loss for me. So I came back 20 pounds lighter.
Can't imagine you.
It was pretty pathetic looking at. I didn't have a chest anymore. My chest went
Just
away.
all abs, rib cage abs.
All abs, and believe it or not, my shoulders never left.
The shoulders.
Those were
And
still
the-
there.
Yeah, the enormous arms. Or did the tattoos kind of
The big
turn into origami?
The big biceps and shoulders stayed. Everything else left. My arms got engulfed by tattoos.
That's so funny. That's so funny. So let's talk about that fight between Conor and Khabib.
Let's talk about it, baby.
I was telling everyone. Everyone was asking me their opinions.
Go ahead. I love to
going
hear this. So you
people
go
that
to
were going
town.
to Vegas saying like, "Oh, I'm going there. You got a guy." I was like, "I got two guys, Dickie and Medic." For anyone who doesn't know, I mean, Dickie, Rich, and our friend Medic, I mean, have been watching since day one, and listen. They don't have the seat that someone like Joe Rogan has to watch every single fight, but they've seen as more fights than anyone that I know or know of. The only person that's seen as many fights as you is probably like a guy like Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
That's it.
I think so. Me and Meta can honestly say that from UFC 1 and the beginning days of Pride, I can't tell you of a fight that I didn't see, whether it was Strikeforce, Bellator, one. I mean, me and Medic watch everything. So, and if it's something that like one is a little hard because it's broadcast from Japan, so it's not as easy to watch. Now it is. They actually just came out with an app so you can watch it. But when it was hard to watch, I might not be watching it live, but I'll figure out the next day on how to like stream it or something. So I'm watching everything, and I'm so interested when people are like, "Well, this isn't a card." I feel like buying the pay-per-view because there's not these high caliber like known fighters. To me, that's bullshit. Every fight, some of the best fights you'll ever see are from two guys you've never even heard of. So like for me, it's like you don't have to just watch because Conor McGregor, John Jones, or Ronda Rousey are fighting. These fights are amazing, and everybody who fights professionally, these guys are amazing fighters. And if you are somewhat into MMA and you don't watch a fight because it doesn't have Conor McGregor on it, you're doing yourself an injustice because you will miss some good fights.
There's a lot of backstory, and I think boxing nails this in one way with like their shows on Showtime and HBO where they do behind the fight. And you see these incredible stories about both fighters. It makes you want to watch the fight. Then you watch the fight, and you're completely let down every single time. They almost always suck. Not that there's some good boxing fights, but I feel like the ones that are hyped the most, like I remember just feeling almost like let down. Ricky Hatton, Mayweather, you remember that a couple years back? And I said, I'll give boxing another chance because I was exclusively
The Mayweather
MMA.
fights are always kind of on the boring side because he's not going to get hit. And that's what he does. He makes people not hit him.
Yeah. It's just not.
But so it
such
makes
a
it
purist.
the other problem with boxing is they hype everything up about the main event. And usually there's not a lot of stuff underneath it. They might put the co-main event might be like somewhat decent, but for the most part it's 5 or 6 fights on a card. The main fight, whether it's Mayweather, whoever it is, the main fight is what you're watching for, and the other stuff you don't really care about. When you watch a UFC event or a Bellator event, you're not. Well, I can't speak for everybody. Some people are just there to watch Conor McGregor in the main event, but if you're into the sport, there is 12 good fights on this card, and they get better with every fight on the card as it goes up. They get better and better. So it's not like you're just watching. We'll use this last event for an example. Say the Khabib Conor fight wasn't good and it didn't live up to your expectations. It's okay. There was 11 other amazing fights. The fight before that, the Tony Ferguson fight, was one of the best fights you'll ever watch. I was in a bar. It was packed. There was 500 people at one of these Buffalo Wild Wings. Not one person was sitting down for that fight. And I mean, if you asked Medic beforehand, if you asked myself, we all said that was going to be the fight. Anthony Showtime Pettis and Tony Ferguson. The way that those two are style-wise set up for there was no way it could not have been a good fight. So, yeah, it wasn't the main event, but if you didn't like that fight, then you shouldn't watch MMA anymore.
Well, at any given event, there could be some amazing fights.
Yeah.
And the thing that's great about knowing yourself and Medic is that you can get like a cheat sheet to what fights are going to be incredible. You can know other things that people don't know. You'd be like, oh, yeah, this looks like it's going to be a blowout. I'm like, no, not at all.
Yeah, that's the two
not
of us
at
all
all.
the time. No,
I won't go past the second round. It won't. And they'll predict fights, and they seem like wizards with this, but it's just because there's so much accumulated knowledge.
Yeah.
You have like a computer in your brain that processes all this information. You know every single fighter because, where most people are playing fantasy, football, baseball, basketball, you guys are playing fantasy fight
MMA.
leagues.
The only
Who's
one I
winning
do.
right now? Who's winning right now?
I am, man. Yeah, Medic, listen, baby. And Chris, when you listen, that's right. I'm winning.
Yeah. So
and I've had a rough season. I've had a lot of guys. I seem to always, Medic and I make fun of my team because for whatever reason, no matter what the season is, I seem to always have guys who pull out of fights left and right. This season has been absolutely insane with it. Everybody on my team has been pulling out of fights, but I am in first place. I'm actually a little nervous. Medic has a lot of fights coming up in these next 2 months, so he's gonna catch up, I think. So it's gonna, it gets close. I think one season, and this is a year. It goes a year, January 1st to December 30th, and there was one season I beat Medic by 7 points. So an entire year of points, I beat him by a total of 7, which.
That's
just
close
for
to
a
match.
Perspective, you can get, if you have the main guy on a card and he wins and he's the champion and he finishes the guy, you can get 22, 23 points from just that one fight. So I won at the end of a year by 7. So this is how close
do you ever
we
do
are.
the math on how many fights were actually like if there's a card where you don't have either guy, that fight doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
But
we'll do side bets. We'll do some side bets.
Did you ever do the math on how many in the course of 1 year, how many matches? It could be like 300 plus matches, right?
Total fights that there are?
Yeah, how many total fights were on the line with your fantasy league?
Oh yeah. We could add it up at the end of the
That's
season. See,
crazy.
it's a ton.
Let's
Especially,
say-
and we have more guys in it now. So
How many
there was
guys? How many guys?
We're back to 3 now. So here's what happened. In the beginning, it was 3. It was me, Medic, and his brother, Filthy Chris. The first 2 seasons was the 2 of us.
Everybody has a nickname, by the way.
The third season, Justin, who is my tattoo guy, one of my closest friends, and actually, hopefully, he'll be getting our Dickie and Tits podcast logo getting done anytime, one of these days. He was involved, so there was 4 of us. Then Justin and Chris decided that they couldn't spend the time to really pay attention to it. So it went to just me and Medic, and it was just the 2 of us for 8 years. And now we're in our 10th season now. Jeez. And Chris Lilly is involved, so he's in it, and he's really into it. Chris actually works for Bellator.
Wow.
So he's super into it. But it's funny, we knew it was going to be this way. When we picked our draft, Chris picked basically the Bellator rosters.
I wanted to ask you about that. You went to see Fedor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What was that like?
Thank you, Chris, by the way. The seats were absolutely amazing. Floor seats for the Chael Sonnen and Bellator.
And who'd you go with?
Fedor fight. Me, Michelle.
Okay.
And then my client, Mike Stein, and his wife were down. And they were sitting up actually like up higher. But the floor seats, there was empty seats in our section. So, and it was like, there wasn't like a lot of security. So
wow.
I just waved him to come down, and he came down. He sat with us, and he was on the floor. He paid I think he paid for like $50 seats, $25 seats, and he was ending up sitting on the floor like 7 rows from the cage.
Jeez.
Right alongside us. That was amazing, dude. That's the second time I've seen Fedor live.
Oh, you have seen him before?
Yeah. Me and Medic saw him in New Jersey years ago when he was in Strikeforce. We saw him. He actually lost to Bigfoot Silva in the Strikeforce heavyweight tournament.
But okay, so was this when Bigfoot Silva was doing his testosterone?
Oh, he was always doing
red flag.
But I mean, the size
time.
of Fedor is not a true heavyweight. Fedor is just a guy who
doesn't like to work out.
A little sloppy in his midsection, liked to eat ice cream cones, which any Fedor fan understands.
Does he really? Is that the thing?
Loves his ice cream cones.
He doesn't give ice cream in his training camp.
And he
doesn't give up
it
ice cream.
And he's not going to cut weight, which a lot of the Russians don't cut as much weight as Americans do. The Russians don't believe in it as much. They still cut. Obviously, Khabib cuts a lot of weight. Fedor was one of those guys who's just going to fight at where he is. So I think if he was somebody who was more disciplined, he could easily fight at 205. So here's a guy who could fight at 205, and he's fighting. I mean, Antonio Bigfoot Silva is a guy who has to cut to make 265. So the size difference is
Bigfoot
amazing.
Silva has acromegalia. So if
Correct.
you remember
Yeah,
Andre the
yeah.
Giant,
Yeah, same thing.
like he's a slightly smaller version,
Yeah,
but
not
he's-
as big as Andre, but same thing.
Yeah.
Head-wise, probably his head's
His
as big,
head's-
but the body didn't get as big as Andre's did.
Yeah.
But the size difference was insane. So Fedor did his best to hang in. He actually almost armbarred him in the end of the first or the end of the second. I forget which one it was, but Bigfoot just kept getting him down with his size, just wrestling him and holding him down. And he was dropping some heavy hammers on Fedor. And Fedor actually almost armbarred him and didn't get it. The bell rang, and then the next round, Bigfoot ended up finishing him. But that was a long time. That might be 10 years ago now.
That's crazy. And this event, he fought Chael Sonnen.
Chael, yeah. Knocked him out, which I think I pretty much
He's a
thought was coming
great
that way.
smack talker too. You know, everyone.
Chael's the best.
Everyone thinks of Conor as a great. He is.
Chael's the original.
Chael's really good at it.
Chael was doing it long
And
before
he's
Conor was ever
funny
in this game.
too. Conor gets deep and dirty.
He gets personal,
Chael
where
Sonnen
Chael does
is
it more in a funny
Like,
way.
I remember he had a title fight, and he went on an interview on ESPN with a belt over his shoulder.
Not
That-
his that he never won.
That he never won.
And he said he was the undefeated champion at 185. I think his record at that time was like 10-5, but he was undefeated. He's unbelievable. He also, when he had that title fight against Anderson Silva, he won. I mean, if it went to the judges, he won all 5 rounds hands down. I mean, some of those rounds were even like 10-8 rounds. He butchered Anderson Silva for 4
That was crazy.
for 4 3/4 rounds. But at the end of the 5th round, Anderson Silva got him in a triangle and tapped him out with maybe 30 seconds to go. Chael, a week later, comes on and says that he really won the fight. Because in what real fight can you dominate for 24 minutes and only lose 1 minute of, and that person's the champ? So he has his ways of doing things, but that's Chael. I love Chael Sonnen. Love that guy.
He's great. And then the other smack talker, Conor. So back,
Yeah,
full loop. Here we
let's
go.
get back to it.
So your thoughts. Let's go first into the actual fight, because I remember leading up, like I started to say before we went off into a couple other things. Everyone out there, there's a lot of fair weather fans, and even people who know how to fight or may have done some jiu-jitsu or kickboxing, they still think Conor is invincible, which is
Everybody does.
very far from true. I mean, he steps up to the plate. He's really talented, obviously. I mean, you can't say he doesn't have talent. He's not good. But when you hear the real critical analysis breakdown from a Dickey or a Medic, they say he has some flaws, and the guy that's going to exploit them is Khabib. And I remember you specifically saying
Years ago.
Yeah, this has been a while. You said this guy's
They
a
weren't even in the
showstopper.
same division, and I used to talk
And they
about
said
it.
that Conor is dodging this guy. He doesn't want to fight him because he will be beat. And
So, just a quick little background. So, Medic and I will usually work for the most part, not all the time, 100%. And this fight, actually, I think we actually differed a little bit. But for the most part, Medic and I will, like Russ was saying, we will pretty much have the same thoughts. So, I'll give you an example. When Ronda Rousey was wrecking the world in the female division, she was running over people, and they didn't really have fights lined up for her. So they gave her at the time Holly Holm, who wasn't ranked that high at the time. She was new into the UFC, and I don't remember the numbers, but I think she was like a 13-1 or 14-1 favorite, Ronda Rousey. It was something insane. Still to this day, I kick myself because I didn't put money down on that. The only 2 people, I mean, there might have been more out there. The only 2 people that I knew of was Medic and I. We're both saying, well, I don't really know, actually. This is a different fight. Like, Ronda was really, really good at what she does, which is get girls in a clinch. She'll take them down. She has this amazing judo throws. Holly brought a different type of game to it, and I'm big on what matchups are. It doesn't matter if this guy beat all the top guys in the world. It's all about matchups. So, whatever, say you were a fighter and you beat Medic in a fight. and I lost to Medic in a fight, and then you and I were going to fight. Does that mean that you're going to beat me necessarily? It's all about matchups. So just because one guy beats somebody else doesn't necessarily mean they're going to beat somebody else. The matchups make the fights. So Holly Holm brought this different scenario. She was the first really, really good, talented striker that Ronda ever fought, and it showed. So Medic and I were both saying, yeah, I don't really know about that, but we were both kind of like I think Holly could be a really tough go for her, and look what happened. She knocked her out in the first round, and it was brutal. And that opened up and exposed Ronda at that time. People thought she was invincible, and then it showed the game plan was keep it on the feet and strike with her because she didn't have good striking.
Well, that's what's funny is that Holly Holm beat Ronda Rousey, and then she went on to fight.
And she lost to Misha Tate, who Ronda has made a career of beating.
Just destroyed over and over again.
Different
to prove
matchups.
your point perfectly.
I always thought Misha fought the fights with Ronda completely wrong. She always, if you watch her fights, Misha Tate has really good wrestling too, and she's good at jiu-jitsu. But it's funny, in all those fights, she would always try to strike with, or she would throw like a couple strikes, and then she would try to clinch with Ronda. And the second she did, she got, not taken down. She got thrown through the air.
Yeah.
And she kept doing it. And she's tough, dude. That second fight, there was a couple times she was in bad spots and she didn't tap out, but I think it actually hurt her arm in the future. But so with that being said, coming up to this fight recently, it's funny. Medic, and I'm not going to speak for Medic, because he can answer for himself, but I do think that his tone has changed on Khabib a little bit, where back in the day, Medic is the guy who got me following.
I love how we
Khabib.
talk about Medic like he's this mythical man.
He is mythical.
Like, so a lot of people listening, you're not going to know who he is. When he comes on, you'll kind of get him.
He's all the cartoons you've ever watched put into one.
A live human
being. That's
human
what he is.
cartoon.
Yeah. All of them.
And
every cartoon character you've ever seen, all morphed into one person.
But
so he was so big on Khabib and got me into it, and this is years ago. And Conor and Khabib weren't in the same weight classes at the time. Conor fought at 145, and Khabib fights at 155. So but me and Medic would say all the time, and Medic and I were both never really huge. Actually, I take that back. When he first came up, I actually kind of liked him, and so did Medic. And then the things he was doing and the way he was conducting himself made me not become a fan, to the point where I can't stand him. In my opinion, he's the worst thing for the sport. With what I know, he makes them a lot of money, so in their eyes, he's great for the sport. I think he does other things that are bad for the sport. He makes other people try to follow in that suit, where everybody wants money fights now. No one wants to defend their titles. Everybody wants to move up and fight the guy in the next weight class, and just make these morphed in between weight class fights. And just back in the good old days, it was, you're the champ, you defended against the number one contender, and that's the way I think it should be. Conor seemed to do a really good job at always avoiding that and getting to skip the line. So going into this fight, this was one of the ones that was kind of weird, because Medic, actually, we had a discussion on the beach this summer at your little shindig that you had, and Medic was different on it. Medic was like, yeah, I was convinced that Conor had zero chance at winning this fight. The matchups, Conor, I didn't think had the ability to defend the kind of takedowns and top pressure that Khabib has. And I just thought it was a nightmare matchup for him, and it turned out that that's kind of the way that the fight played out. Medic thought if the fight went into further rounds, then Khabib was going to wear him down, and it would be that outcome. But Medic also thought that, and other people that I spoke to thought that Conor could catch him in the first round with his power, show his power. The thing I think about it is, and don't get what I say, two things are mixed up. I think Conor's one of, if not the most overrated fighter in the UFC. And people are listening and they go, oh my God.
Yeah.
How can you say that? Don't get overrated mixed up with not good, because they're two different things. He's obviously good and he's obviously talented. My opinion is he's been overhyped and overrated for a long time. If you follow his career, which I always have, follow all these guys, not just most people know Conor McGregor and they're like, oh, he's fighting, he's the best in the world, let's put it on. He's the champ, and he's the champ in another division. But what you didn't realize is he became the champ. He got a title shot from beating Dennis Seaver, who is not a very good fighter. He was supposed to fight Jose Aldo. Aldo pulled out of the fight. So he was given, Chad Mendes took the fight for the interim title against Conor on 9 days rest. This was back when he fought at 145 pounds. And Conor walks around at 170, 175 pounds. He's a big dude. So at 145, he was huge. Chad Mendes is a tiny dude. A lot of people make fun of him and say he has T-Rex arms because they're very short arms. But he's a tiny dude. Mendes took the fight on 9 days notice, and he pretty much took it to Conor for 2 rounds. Like, beat him up, took him down, wrestled him, lumped him up with forearms, and that was the recipe to beat Conor. And I was pretty much convinced that Chad was going to win the fight. In the third round, Chad went for a guillotine, which he didn't get. Conor popped his head out, and at that point, Chad Mendes couldn't lift his arms anymore. All you guys listening, if you're jiu-jitsu guys, you have a choke on somebody hard for a while, and they get out. So much blood rushes into your arms that your arms become heavy. You can't even lift them anymore. Chad got up, and he couldn't even lift his arms, and Conor just teed off on him. But so that fight that he won, Chad took on 9 days notice. He didn't have a fight camp for it. So, you're gonna guess, and that's how he won that fight. After that, we all know what happened. He fought Aldo, and it was the one shot. The fight started. Actually, Medic and I were there. We were in Vegas for that, and that was a hard thing to watch because I can't stand Conor, and I like Jose Aldo a lot, but he knocked him out in 13 seconds. And again, maybe that would happen again, maybe it wouldn't, but we didn't really get to see what would have really happened in that fight if it played out. That's a freak. They both threw a punch literally at the same time. Aldo actually connected. If you watch it in slow motion, Aldo lands on Conor. Conor just lands better and knocked him out. After that fight, Conor decides he's going to fight at 155, which he's never had a fight at. They give him a title shot, and he's supposed to fight Rafael Dos Anjos, who's the champion at the time. They're going to give him a title shot. So he's now avoided going back to 145. Medic and I always thought the toughest challenge at 145 was Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar Frankie lost to Jose Aldo, but in my opinion, a much worse matchup for McGregor than Aldo, because Aldo's going to strike with you, and Frankie Edgar's not. Frankie Edgar's going to wrestle you and take you down, and he has endless cardio. Half the size. He trains like a beast, and he will constantly take you down, and you will eventually be sapped of all your energy, and you will give up. Yeah. And we know that Conor is going to give up when he gets tired. So he moves up to 55. He's supposed to fight Rafael Dos Anjos. Rafael Dos Anjos gets hurt, pulls out, and that's where the Nate Diaz thing comes in. So they offer Nate Diaz the fight. Nate Diaz says, I'll take the fight. I can't make 155 in this short amount of time. Conor says, no problem. I'll move up to 170. And that was where you saw Conor, kind of break down when it got, when things got a little shaky in there and he wasn't knocking dudes out and it went into further rounds and his energy wasn't there. He eventually, if you watch the fight, Nate didn't take him down for that choke to finish him. Conor tried to take him down, which is basically saying, Nate Diaz has phenomenal jiu-jitsu. So a guy like Conor shouldn't be trying to take down Nate Diaz. That was basically saying, I'm going to try to end this fight one way or another. I'm so tired. It was basically, in my opinion, giving up. He tried to take him down. Nate immediately put a choke on him, and that was the end of the fight. So my opinion on Conor is still debatable. I don't know. Everybody talks about his power, and I'm not sure if that really holds true. Yes, he was powerful at 145. He knocked dudes out, but he's big at 145. If I fought a kid who weighs 100 pounds, I'll probably knock him out because I'm 190 pounds. I'm a lot bigger than him. So now that he's fighting at 155 and guys at 170, he's not knocking dudes out anymore. And he caught Khabib with some shots the 2 weeks ago, and Khabib walked through him. So I don't know if he is as powerful as everybody says he is. And again, not saying he's not a good fighter. Just I think UFC did a really good job on avoiding tough matchups for him. He avoided a lot of tough guys at 155 to get that title shot. He after he beat Nate, he lost to Nate. Then they rematched. He beat him the second time, which is debatable. I actually thought Nate Diaz
was very
won.
close.
I thought Nate won the second fight, but no complaints either way. If you give the fight to Conor, I don't have a problem with it. It was that close. I thought that Nate won the fight. Then he gets the title shot at 155, having never fought at 155. Now he fought Nate at 170.
Have they done that with any other division? Like Daniel Cormier's two divisions, but he's fought in both divisions.
Cormier was a heavyweight first
before
he came down to 205. In Strikeforce, he was the heavyweight champ in Strikeforce. And then when he came into the UFC, I think it was mainly because he didn't end up wanting to ever. His main training partner and best friend is a guy who fights in the heavyweight division in the UFC, and I think he just wanted to avoid ever having to have a fight with him. So the easiest step for him to do was to move down to 205. But he took that fight at heavyweight, and now he's the heavyweight champ.
Wow.
So Conor gets the title shot. Here's the one. This is the fight where I will give. Conor actually surprised the shit out of me because I thought Eddie Alvarez would win that fight. Conor pieced him up and made him look really, really terrible in that fight. The issue I have with it is I don't know what Eddie Alvarez's game plan was, because Eddie has phenomenal wrestling, and he decided to stand up with Conor, that's a mistake. I don't know what he was thinking in that. But he paid the price. He lost. Conor's now the champ at 155. Again, never defends the title. So this is now 145, never defended it. 155, never defended it. Decides to go take a boxing fight with Floyd Mayweather, and they end up stripping him. So now you have him. He fought Eddie Alvarez, which is, I thought Eddie would win the fight, but not necessarily a bad matchup for Conor. So he avoids. 155 has, in my opinion, is the toughest division in the UFC. He avoids all of these guys and gets the title shot. So they strip him of the belt, and then they do the interim thing, which
is it him avoiding, or is it the UFC really?
It's a
saying
combination
this guy
of the
is
two.
So marketable, people love him so
Definitely.
much that we don't want to give him someone that's going to stop the Conor train.
100%, and that's what they did with Ronda. Also, they were giving her fights that are favorable fights. There wasn't women at the time that had to stand up as Holly Holm, and then when they. Eventually you're going to get to the point where you can't keep avoiding these people. So now we get to, forward, we get to what we just had. Khabib is now the champion. He won the belt. A lot of people complained about the way he won it, but he was supposed to fight Tony Ferguson, and Ferguson pulled out of the fight last minute. They tried to move up Max Holloway. Max Holloway got hurt. So they didn't want to just scrap the entire event, so they put Al Iaquinta on the card. And listen, in my opinion, Al Iaquinta's a stud. And if you put Al Iaquinta and Conor McGregor in the ring, I will put money on the fact Al Iaquinta will ragdoll the shit out of Conor McGregor. Bring it. And anybody who wants to challenge me on that, bring it. So Khabib wins the belt. He's the champ. At this point, Conor can't avoid it anymore. He wants to be known as the man, and he wants to fight he wants the title back. He had no choice unless he's just going to take more meaningless fights against Nate Diaz at whatever made-up weight class they want to fight at, or whatever they're going to do. But
which he actually could have, because he was out of the ring for the octagon for
he could have done it.
He could have done a warm-up fight.
But I think in his mind, he wants to be the champ. He wants to have that belt on. So you have all of these issues. Let's not go over like the stuff that happened leading up at the Brooklyn card with the bus attack and all that.
That's been exhausted.
It's just too much. But the fight happens. It went almost to a T on how I called it was going to go. The only thing is I actually didn't think it was going to go past 2 rounds. And I called Khabib to win by submission via Kimura or armbar, which almost happened. He had him in a Kimura in the second round. I was like, oh my God, it's going to happen exactly how I thought. Conor got through the round. The third round was a little bit on the slow side, and then the fourth round, Khabib just put it to him and tapped him out with the choke. So
fight breakdown from technique wise, it went pretty much exactly how you thought it was going to go. He owned him.
You're taking. The thing that surprised me was the actual stand-up game of Khabib. Khabib was willing for a little while there to stand with him, and he actually dropped Conor with a punch, that overhand right he dropped him with. Which, if you look at it, he set that up with the fact that Conor was getting ready. If you slow that down, Khabib fakes to Khabib's left, which is Conor's right, looking like he's going to shoot on him. Conor makes a move to defend the takedown, and Khabib comes over the top with a right and drops him. So it's funny because Khabib is not known for the stand-up game. Conor is. Conor landed some shots on Khabib, which Khabib walked right through him and kept coming, and Khabib landed a shot on him that dropped him. And really, that round, that was a 10-8 round. He dropped him with the shot. After that, he took him down and he laid some ground and pound on Conor. That, in my opinion, that was the fight right there. He took the life out of him in that second round.
Well, Conor even said that he didn't really have respect for Khabib's stand-up at all.
Yeah.
A little bit. And he said that was a problem because he was... he didn't say he was better than I thought, but he said he had no respect for it, and that's why he got caught. Yeah. So that was an interesting Instagram post, the post-fight.
It's funny. He said, he said a lot of things leading up to that fight, but a lot of it was how hard he's training in his wrestling, for all he's done for 6 months, his training wrestling. Yeah, that's great, dude. This guy's been wrestling since he was 4 years old. This is the thing that's so funny, because people say it to me all the time, like even coming up to the fight, you really think that Khabib's going to take him down that easy? Conor's just been working on his ground game for 6 months. I'm like, yeah, dude, that's the most ridiculous statement in the world. Well, I have a little bit of stand-up and a little bit of jiu-jitsu in my lifetime. If you add up the years total that I've done, like, bits and pieces over years, maybe it equals up to 6 months of training. So that's like saying, take me now, give me 6 months to train, and I'll go fight Mike Stein and kick his ass. No, it's not going to happen. This is what this guy's been doing for...
What do you mean? That's CM Punk.
Exactly. So it's insane when people think like this. Oh, but he's been training for 6 months in takedown defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going up against probably the best wrestler in all of the UFC.
I heard John Kavanaugh is his name. Is that?
Yeah, Conor's coach.
Yeah, Conor's coach even talked that he's like, yeah, we were probably a little too defensive minded, and he went in depth about talking about how too much of their game plan was about defending, and it wasn't about doing what Conor's good at, and it was, and if you watch the fight, I mean. I don't know. I don't know if it's a win situation because he's so good at Khabib. I'm talking about is so good at what he does.
Yeah, that's no
that
question.
It's not. You can't catch up to that. So you really have to focus on what you're good at.
Yeah.
And try to execute that.
But again, it comes down to listen. I think the world of Khabib. Him and Mighty Mouse are my two favorite fighters. Currently, BJ Penn's my all-time favorite, but those are my two current favorite fighters. With that being said, I don't think Khabib is like the most dominant. He's going to run through every. I mean, yeah, he's 27-0. There's guys out there that I actually think are a bad matchup for Khabib. Actually, I think the worst matchup for Khabib is a guy who doesn't even fight in UFC. He fights in Bellator. I think Michael Chandler would be a nightmare matchup for Khabib, because his wrestling is probably just as good. He's an absolute specimen. He is so big and strong for his size. He's so strong, and he's got really, really good stand-up. So I think the wrestling kind of almost, it's their wrestling is so good against each other that it almost, that actually take that out of the fact, because I think it stifles each other. But then Chandler's stand-up is much better than Khabib's. So I think that's a bad matchup. I think Tony's going to... I still think Khabib beats Tony. I think Tony's a tough matchup.
Tony Ferguson
is a tough matchup for Khabib.
What do you think about the aftermath of the fight?
Okay, yeah. So we were going to... So leaving the fights that night, obviously it's something that I would never want to see happen. This is a sport that I love to death, and things like that. I'm not a big fan of things like that. I left the fight, and I was very, very happy with what happened in the fight, but I left kind of sad and really disappointed in what happened afterwards. Khabib let his emotions get to him. What made me most disappointed was not actually getting to hear the post-fight interview. The best thing in the world was to just get to see the two of them, Joe Rogan standing in between Conor and Khabib getting to, here's the microphone. Now say what you wanted to say for all this time. Conor, you talked a lot about my family. You talked a lot about my religion. You talked a lot about my father. I just kicked the shit out of you. And getting the belt put on him. He didn't even get to have the belt put on him in front of the world was watching. And that was, in my opinion, very, very disappointing. So I left the fights, and I was saying to my fiance on the way home, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so disappointed. I was down. I was like, even down on Khabib a little bit. So I wake up the next day, and my opinion completely changed. So what happened was I started thinking actually about everything leading up to this fight. The bus incident, him and, Conor and the 30 guys surrounding the bus, throwing things at the bus, the things that were said in social media, and then the things in the pressers coming up to it. And Conor saying the things that he said. Not, listen, you want to tell somebody in a presser, oh, I'm going to kick your ass, you got no chance. That's all well and good. But you attacked a man, you attacked his father, you attacked his country, you attacked his religion. This is
everything.
When people are like, oh, well, you got to have thick skin and be able to take that. People got to also understand, you guys are from the United States and you live on Long Island or New York or wherever you live. It's not the same. This guy's from Dagestan. Religion and country and family is very, very different. And take it from me, I lived in a third world country. I lived in Nicaragua. Do me a favor, go down there and tell one of the local kids down there that their father sucks, their country blows. They're going to put a gun to your head. It's just totally, totally different from walking up to a guy here and saying those things. Here, we're not going to like it, but we have thick skin and we'll deal with it. So you're saying stuff to a guy that, this is not fight trash talking to him. You're getting under his skin and you're getting personal and you're saying things that are bothering him. And he did a great job in the pressers. When Conor was saying all this stuff, if you watch Khabib, he never really let it get to him in the pressers. He just kept saying the same thing. October 6th, we'll see who does the talking. That's all he kept saying. And a lot of people wanted to go with, Conor's so good at getting under people's skin. Is he getting under his skin? Yeah, guess what? He got under his skin, and it was the worst thing he could have ever done because you took a guy who was an absolute nightmare and you made him even worse. All he wanted to do was kick the living crap out of you. And if you watch, a lot of people didn't pick up on this, but watch when Conor taps, Khabib did not want to let go of that choke. The ref actually, if go watch the fight again, the ref had to grab his hands and pull him apart. Khabib wasn't going to let go of that choke. He was holding on. So the fight ends. He's all hopped up on emotions. He's pissed off. Even during the fight at the end of the second round, he was talking a lot of shit to Conor, even to get Conor to say to the point, it's just business, which it obviously wasn't to Khabib. But Dylan Dennis, he's a fucking douchebag anyway. But Dylan Dennis, who's one of Conor's teammates, is sitting outside the cage and he's running his mouth and saying shit. There's different speculation on what he was actually saying, but that's who Khabib, if you watch, Khabib takes his mouthpiece out and he throws it outside the cage. He was throwing it at Dylan Dennis, and then he just lost his shit and he went at him. And in my opinion, it's not something that should happen. It's not something I would ever root for happening, but you get somebody to the point and you're allowed, and the UFC I bring fault too. When you allow somebody to say these kinds of things, you want to call it hyping fights, trash talking to hype fights, maybe they got to reconsider what they allow to be hyping fights, because that's personal stuff, especially with a guy from a country like Dagestan who's fought for a long time to get out of the control of Russia, and they're dealing with a lot of stuff, and you say things like that, you're asking for trouble, and that's what you got. But there's again, it's not a wonderful thing that happened, but again, it's not a meditated thing that happened. This was pure emotion. What Conor did with the bus was premeditated. He planned on that happening. He got together these 30 guys, and they knew where the bus was going to be. Conor wasn't even supposed to be at that event, and he showed up with these 30 guys and surrounded the bus and threw it. So that was a premeditated. He planned on this happening. If he didn't plan on it, he was hopped up on emotions and went after somebody.
It was, I was watching something on YouTube where Khabib had confronted one of his teammates and
Artem Lobov.
And then he, you almost feel like he used that as an excuse to say, all right, this is my opportunity.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm going to use that to go after him and say, it's about that. It's about you going after one of my teammates. Although no punches were thrown or anything.
No, Khabib had his hand on Artem's, like, on the back of his head. He was talking to him, and he had, like, the back of his head, back of his neck kind of a thing, like, holding him. And he kept saying the same thing. Artem said some stuff about Khabib, a while before that, and Khabib and Artem were on the same card for that event, and he saw him in the lobby of the hotel, and Khabib went up to him and was just saying, "What? I'm here now. You said all this stuff about me. Say it. Why did you say that? Say it to me now." And Artem kept saying, "I didn't say that. I didn't say that." A lot of it is in Russian, which, fortunately for me, my fiance is Russian, so she actually translated a lot of what was said, and it's actually kind of cool to hear what's actually said in that whole confrontation between the two of them. So she can hear some of it. She can't hear the entire thing because it's hard. People are taping that with their phones, so it's kind of hard to hear everything, but you get the gist of it. He's saying a lot of stuff where Khabib wants to know why he's saying the stuff about him that he said about him, and Artem's basically saying that he wasn't saying that stuff and whatever, all this other shit. But so that obviously gave Conor the fire to get on a plane and jump from, I think he was in Ireland actually at the time, and the next day he was in Brooklyn, and that was that. The crazy thing about the whole thing is, and there's mixed thoughts on what happened here, but I want to know how Conor got access to where those buses are, because you and I couldn't just walk down there where those buses are.
Well, that's Conor McGregor.
So Khabib, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but Khabib is convinced that the UFC allowed him to go in there and do that whole thing. Wow. Khabib is 100% convinced, and he actually brings up some good points on. If you read his posts, he brings up some really good points on why that could be true, because how did he know exactly where the bus was? How did he know which bus Khabib was on?
The bus was pulling in, too.
There was pulling out. They were leaving. And there was two of them.
Okay.
So you got to remember, you have these 13 fights on the card, and you have, one person going up against the other. They can't be on the same bus. They want to keep them separate.
Two buses.
So you have one bus with all the red glove people and one bus with all the blue glove people. So he not only knew where the bus was and how to get down there, he knew which bus he was on. So yeah, it's interesting. But Khabib is convinced that the UFC allowed him to go down there. If the UFC didn't do it, somebody did, because Conor wasn't on this card. He shouldn't have access to get down to where he got down.
Yeah.
With 30 of his closest friends, by the way. So, it's very interesting. But anyway, getting back to the end of the fight, I was disappointed that night. Now, I honestly, it doesn't bother me whatsoever. I actually say good for Khabib. I support 100% of what he did at this point, because I think Conor deserved it. And hopefully things change with Conor in the future. Maybe this humbles him a little bit. Maybe he'll stop with the shit talk so much and maybe focus more on his actual fighting skills and less on all the shit talk that comes up before the fights.
I've been watching since the first one. My friends and I was, like I've said
before, I mean, you're big into this
old
too.
School. Yeah, I'm not as a religious follower as Dickie is, but I have the first 5 on VHS.
Very
Anybody
cool.
under 30
Do you still-
doesn't even know what that
do you
means. I still have them.
Do you still have
And I have a VHS
player?
player. We should play him one day.
Jesus.
Bill Superfoot Wallace. Do you remember Bill Superfoot
Yeah,
Wallace?
I
He
do.
narrated the first one. He's the worst announcer ever. But I met him, and we actually did a karate clinic with him in Daytona Beach way back when I did Kempo. And he was an awesome guy. We even dropped him off at the airport. It was awesome. I have the first 5 on VHS, and then it went dark in New York because it became illegal. So once it came back on, I had some friends that trained at Sarah's camp, and Sarah, is one of the originals.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Love that guy.
A former champ. I actually saw him in Vegas win against GSP. I was there live for that. That was incredible.
You were at that fight?
I was at that fight.
Holy shit.
It was
Biggest upset in UFC
biggest
history.
upset in UFC hit. I was like, what? I think everybody was.
Listen, Matt, I'll tell you what. Matt Serra was known for his jiu-jitsu, still known for his jiu-jitsu, but
Yeah.
that boy is thick and can
Yeah.
throw some heavy hands.
Oh, jeez.
And if he connects, which he did, you're gonna. I mean, that's. Did GSP ever go out and Condit actually? Condit dropped him with a kick one time, but other than that, I mean, Hendricks landed shots on him and beat him up, but didn't ever.
Nobody, even
drop
when
him.
he lost the second time against GSP, he was getting beat down, but he wasn't like completely crushed where he couldn't defend himself. But you know what I find funny, really quick about Sarah is that if you meet you met Matt Serra before?
Yeah, Matt.
He's the nicest guy on the
super
planet.
nice.
He is so cool. I've never heard anyone say a bad thing about him.
No, Matty's a really good guy.
Nicest guy. I've talked to several people who never met him, or I've heard opinions of people that aren't from New York, and everyone thinks he's like, they don't like him. And I don't get it.
Because he's from New York and he's got that hardcore New York accent.
Oh my God. Maybe
He's
it's just the
one
accent.
of the friendliest, funniest dudes, and all he wants to do is eat pasta.
He's a very cool guy. I mean,
We can-
from
we'll
the few
actually,
times- we actually did a seminar when I was in karate way back. I'm talking like 20 years ago, right? We did a seminar with him, and it was awesome. We were learning like first day of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu type techniques, and every time he shows us something, we all bow to him. We're very respectful.
Yeah.
And it was really funny. I knew someone who was a part of who trained with him since the beginning as well. And he spoke about that. He's like, oh yeah, I remember doing that clinic. And he's like, yeah, those crazy karate guys. He's like, that it was so nice. It was great. And he didn't say anything. Like, he didn't say, oh yeah, I could have tapped out every one of them. He didn't say stuff like that. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
So
We should actually, Shawnee, we'll have him on as a guest because Sean's doing, our buddy Sean Levy, who used to be a trainer with us over at Equinox, he's doing his own thing these days, and he's doing a lot of...
was he a brown belt now?
Sean, yeah, not only a brown
Jeez.
belt, but he teaches at Sarah's. He's an instructor there.
Wow. Good for
But
him.
he's doing his own thing. He's gone more into the nutrition aspect of training. So he's coaching people online and in person with nutrition. But Shawnee, I mean, obviously he's an instructor for Matt, so we'll have him on as a guest to talk about his adventure with the whole nutrition thing. But he'll give us a lot of good stories on Matty.
That's great. But so to get back to my point that I've been watching since the beginning and I've seen everything. I mean, we rocked out the UFC 100 was at one of our really good friends
Remember
30th
that?
birthday party. Oh, that was
The worst hangover of my life.
worst hangover ever. Not for
What
me.
a great time.
Yeah.
Medic, you'll remember that one. That was the one where you and I were on the side of the road every 15 minutes throwing up.
Walking Dead. That's all I could say. I had 2 Walking Dead men. You were a little bit better than he
I was better than Medic.
He was not.
Medic
good
was not doing well.
So it goes back a long time. It's deeply embedded in me and my relationships with my friends and the events we shared and going to Buffalo Wild Wings. So when I saw that, I was in it's actually funny. I have this friend that is from Philly, and she was in. So I said, "Oh, I got to go watch the fights. But I have a flat tire. Come to Long Beach, grab an Uber and watch with me. I can't go watch where I normally watch." So she came out. She actually left before that fight. She's like, "I can't. I got to go to sleep." She's like, "I can't watch fights anymore." I'm like, "All right, see you later, bye." And I stayed, ordered a couple more wings, and watched the final fight. But see, the thing is that when I watch it, I wasn't surprised by that. That didn't... Who's coming
Sorry
out?
about that.
I feel like that's a fight song.
That's a spam call from Texas.
Oh, jeez. So I feel so I wasn't thrown off by it. I kind of saw it happen, and I was like, yeah, he tried to pull the same crap he pulls with everybody, and this guy is a different breed of person.
Yeah, that's
Who deals
you
with
nailed it on the head.
different
He's a
set
different
of
breed.
rules and respect, and you took it too far, and your little crony on the outside of the ring just got under his skin, and that's what happens. I wasn't so offended by it. It didn't taint my idea of the sport.
Yeah, I remember
The
talking to
thing
you. You
that-
weren't that.
The thing that bothers me about it is that, it's a great sport, and there really is something to fighting that is just magical, and it's I don't know. It's just the highest intensity of any sport there possibly is, right? Where the most is on the line, and it's such a challenge to every human that walks into that octagon to do what they do, and they're the highest level athletes. So I know all that. But that was the biggest pay-per-view ever for MMA.
2.5 million.
What's a
pay-per-view
shame
buys.
is that you have a couple 100,000 people watching for the first time, and
Right.
that's what they see and say, "Oh, that's what I thought it was."
Yeah, I know.
And that's
going
to turn them off. So it's not great for the sport.
Right.
That's what bothered me more, is that, it's something I've enjoyed for so many years and appreciated.
Right.
And I think it's a turnoff for people who are watching the first time. And you know what? I feel really bad for a lot of people that were in the arena that had to deal with these drunk Russians and Irishmen.
I heard there was fights breaking out.
Crazy fights. You saw some of the videos where people are
casino.
knocking each other out. Like, why are you guys fighting?
Yeah, there was.
But-
I heard crazy stories in bars afterwards. Russians and Irishmen
I just
fighting.
would not want to have to deal with that.
But feeding off of what you just said, how intense the sport is. That's the other thing. And I was saying before how Khabib, this wasn't a premeditated thing. His emotions are so high. You're in a fight. I mean, anybody here who's ever been in like a fight, even like a little fight in high school you were in with somebody, your adrenaline is fired up. So Khabib's fired up. He just chokes out this guy. He gets pulled off by the ref, and there's some guy outside, talking shit to him. His emotions just got the best of him. But I guess the thing that bothered me most is how people afterwards, and even Medic, who used to be a big Khabib fan, I don't know if he's as big a fan as he used to be. I think he kind of lost a lot of respect for Khabib. And it's a shame because I go by track record. And Khabib has one of the best track records in the sport. If you watch his fights, after every single fight, he bows to his opponent, he shakes their hand, he hugs them, he tells them that they were great. He never talks smack about anybody. What's Conor's track record? His track record is dog shit. He talks shit about every single guy he's ever fought. He says bad shit about it. He took it to a new level with Khabib because of the country and the religion and all that. But his track record speaks for itself, and Khabib speaks for itself. So Rossi, you and I have been friends for 15 years, and I know who you are as a person. If one day you came in the gym in a bad mood and you snapped at me, Ross, should I just not talk to you anymore because one time you snapped at me? I go by your track record. Your track record for 15 years says you're a good guy and you're my friend. So for people to get turned away from Khabib because of one thing that was building up inside him for a long, long time is insanity to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So looking forward, I don't think there's much of a rematch. From a stylistic standpoint,
unfortunately,
from
people want to talk
an
about
actual fight standpoint, I don't think there's much. Do you think there's anything there?
Oh God, please no. Listen,
but financially,
for the UFC, there's a lot of money to be made, and that's what they're always going to look at. From a fight standpoint, one, he doesn't deserve a rematch. He wasn't the champion. It wasn't like it was a competitive fight. Listen, Demetrius Johnson has defended his title 13 times and didn't get a rematch and lost a fight that most people thought he won. So to give this guy, see again, this is the Conor shit that I'm talking about. It shouldn't even be mentioned, but it's mentioned because it's Conor McGregor. He gets mentioned as a rematch. You know what's going to happen? Nothing different. Good. Put him in a rematch because the same shit's going to happen. Khabib's going to kick the shit out of him again, maybe even sooner, maybe 1 round, maybe 2 rounds. The problem is, yeah, they'll make money off of that one fight. But I look at it as, if you want to make money off of Conor McGregor, you better have him start winning some fights. Because if he loses another fight and gets absolutely decimated by Khabib again, who's going to give a shit about Conor McGregor fights anymore? He can talk all he wants, but when he loses, it's not interesting anymore. When he was talking all this shit at 145 pounds, it was interesting because he was knocking dudes out. So it was fun to watch. A dude can talk all he wants. If he keeps losing, no one cares anymore.
It's not big talking.
So yeah, all the Conor fans can jump up and down and yeah, rematch. He's gonna get smoked again, I promise you all, and then you're not gonna care about him anymore after that. Let the fights happen that's supposed to happen. Conor should go fight, somebody lower on the totem pole. I think like a Dustin Poirier would be a good fight for him. Maybe even if people want to throw Justin Gaethje into the mix. I think it would be a fun fight because the way Gaethje likes to just throw bombs. So that would be an interesting fight. But the fight that's supposed to happen right now, Khabib should defend the title against Tony Ferguson. And that's it. There should be no other conversation on the table. One fight to be made, make the fight, and that's it.
Was the Ferguson fight the best fight of the night, you think?
Oh, yeah, easily. Well, most entertaining fight. Most people would probably say it was the most entertaining fight. For me, the Khabib fight was still better to me because I got to watch my favorite guy beat the living snot out of the guy I can't stand the most in the UFC. So for me, it was very entertaining. I was loving every second of it. And I was in a bar packed full of Conor McGregor fans, all yelling before the fight because I was wearing a Khabib Russian. I think I'm going to butcher the name, but Papukia, whatever.
You were wearing the hat then?
I was wearing the hat.
You brought the hat.
I had it in the bar.
There was one guy wearing a hat where I was.
Yeah.
I was at,
I think you told me he was a little kid, wasn't he?
Bricks and Barley in, no, it wasn't a little kid. It was Bricks and Barley in Long Beach, and there was one guy with the hat on, and as soon as all this stuff went down, I feel like the hat came right off. I don't know why. Maybe he thought there was going to be some stuff go down.
But yeah, I wore my straight through the night.
You're like, Long Beach is not typically a place that has a lot of Russians or Irish people.
Yeah.
So I think you were kind of safe. You could wear it.
I was in a bar that had 500 people, and I would say 400 of them were Conor fans.
Really?
Screaming and yelling and telling me that Conor was gonna smoke him and knock him out, and I kept laughing at him, and I said, let's talk after this fight.
What did you do? Order it on Amazon? Where'd you get that?
Oh, one of my friends brought it in that night.
Really?
Yeah. Gave it to me because he knows I'm a fan. So I was having a great time in there. I had people telling me, I was like, okay, listen, after he loses, it's going to be by submission or ground and pound. Stay in the bar and talk to me and let's discuss it.
Yeah.
None of them wanted to talk to me after the fight. It was amazing. But I kept the hat on. I had people yelling at me. But you know what's listen. One, I don't care. People can say whatever they want. I'm not scared. You come in my face and tell me whatever you want. But it also is fun when you have Mike Stein sitting next to you.
Yeah, that's,
Anybody, please, come and say something to me. I'll have my friends knock the shit out of you.
Do the listeners remember who Mike Stein is? He was actually...
Mike Stein is not only one of my really good friends, but he's also a client of mine. I've been training for the last couple years now. But he was on season 3 of The Ultimate Fighter. That was the season Michael Bisping won. So he has a big background in MMA. He's really good at jiu-jitsu, really good stand-up. I've seen him punch and kick, and it sounds like something I never ever want to be a part of receiving. But now he owns his own dojo. He owns a Tiger Schulman's in Rego Park, which is, I think he's the number 1 Tiger Schulman's in the country. So he's older now. He's 39. When he started training with me, he had some back issues, which forced him to stop fighting. He couldn't fight anymore because he had back issues. And he heard my story and started training with me. And I mean, I'll tell you what, dude, this guy he's 215 pounds, mid 210, somewhere around there. He's less body fat than me. He's massive, lean, strong, and could kill people. So he's a gentle giant. He would probably never do anything unless you really got in his face. But it's always nice when he's sitting next to you to know that I'll do whatever I want and wear whatever hat I want. Bring it.
That's really funny. Yeah. So, well, following that, is there any other upcoming events or matches you're really looking forward to?
Well, Rossi, I look forward to all of them, but the the one that's coming up, the next pay per view. There's a fight card coming up this weekend. It's a Fox Sports 1 card, so most people probably wouldn't even pay attention because it's not one of the bigger cards. But there's some great fights on it. But the one in 2 weeks is there's some good fights on it. It's the Madison Square Garden card, and if anybody was watching the Khabib Conor card, you'll remember there was a big giant black guy on there, the Black Beast, who I love to death, Derek Lewis. And if you remember, after he was basically losing that fight, he lost 3 rounds of that fight, and with 30 seconds to go, he threw a bomb and knocked out his opponent. But in his post-fight speech, he took off his shorts.
I was like, what is going on?
I think everybody in the bar was like, what is he doing? Joe Rogan, in my opinion, had maybe the funniest reply ever. But he asked him what he was doing, and you do it good. What was the line that he said?
My balls is hot.
Exactly. My balls is hot. But if you listen to it, the best part about it is Joe Rogan just goes, I understand. No, not even in a joking manner. That was as quick as it could be. Hey, why'd you take your shorts off? My balls is hot. I understand.
So take me back to the knockout.
It was amazing, amazing. But anyway, Derek Lewis, who went from 400,000 Instagram followers on Saturday afternoon, on Sunday morning had 1.4 million
That's
Instagram
crazy.
followers because of, obviously there was a lot of people watching that fight card, and a lot of people got to see what a cool person I had. I listened to the Luke Thomas show, which is on Sirius, and Luke Thomas is a really, really brilliant guy in the whole MMA world, but he has Derek Lewis on all the time, and this guy is magical. Every single time he's on the show, the guy's personality is just, he's a funny, fun-loving kind of guy.
His Instagram page is
hilarious.
Hysterical.
And he has like an infatuation with Ronda Rousey, which is kind of funny. But he's just that gentle, big giant black man, gentle, and he will knock the piss out of you if he's fighting you and he connects with a shot. But anyway, so Derek Lewis has a fight in 2 weeks against Daniel Cormier, who's the heavyweight champ. So if you remember that post-fight interview, Joe Rogan asked him if he thinks he deserves a title shot. Derek Lewis' answer was, I'm not ready for a title shot. I don't have the cardio for that. I'm not ready for that type of level yet. I have a lot of work to do. Well, fast forward about a week and a half after that, and the Madison Square Garden card kind of fell apart. They lost some fights on there. So they offered this fight to Derek Lewis, and he took it, and he's got,
He's got 4 weeks.
I don't think it's a very good fight for Derek Lewis. I think Daniel Cormier is far too smart with the way he fights. I think that he's not going to try to engage in the stand-up with Derek Lewis. I think Derek Lewis is not known for his cardio. If you watch that fight, you saw that. And that's usually typical Derek Lewis. He'll gas out. But I think Daniel Cormier will put him up against the cage, lean on him. A lot of clinch work, a lot of dirty boxing. Daniel Cormier is really good at that kind of stuff. Lean on him, slow him down, take him down a lot, and he'll eventually... I actually think he's going to finish him with a submission. He could get him with some ground and pound, but if I was putting money down, I got Daniel Cormier by second round submission.
Okay.
Probably rear naked choke. That's usually his go-to, but I don't think it's a great fight for Derek Lewis. I think it's good for him for getting the fight. I think he deserves it. He's funny. I think he brings a good fan base to the sport. So listen, it will be fun.
What do you think about? I just saw this fight just happen because someone had to pull out. Rockhold pulled out. Jacare.
Yeah, Jacare and Weidman.
And Weidman.
It's funny
for a fellow Long Islander. What do you think his chances are?
Weidman's always tough because he gets hurt a lot. So there's so much time in between each of his fights, but 185 is a funny division to me. I think that talent-wise, I think Rockhold's the best fighter in the 185-pound division. Talent-wise, I think he's got the best combination of unbelievable jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and stand-up. The problem is he's also, it seems like he's just got a he's got a glass jaw. It seems like it doesn't take much to put him out. Jacare, I think, is going to be a tougher fight. Rockhold already beat Weidman. I was at that fight. So that was also in Vegas the same night as the Aldo McGregor fight. And Rockhold beat Weidman that night, which I expected to happen. And I still to this day think Rockhold's got a better skill set than Weidman. I just think that Rockhold goes out too easily these days, and Weidman can hit hard. And I think that this time around, I think Weidman was going to take the fight. Even though I think that Rockhold's the better fighter, I think Weidman was going to finish him. Jacare, I think, is a really, really tough fight for Weidman.
Why is that?
Just the combination. The only bad fight I've seen Jacare have in probably forever was the fight. He lost the fight against Whitaker, but he had a lot of issues coming into that fight, and you could tell if you watch the fight. The Jacare that we saw in that fight, you could tell something was wrong. He wasn't explosive. He didn't have that fire that he always has. But since then, he's gone back to the Jacare that I love.
Jacare is a fighter who should have had a title shot already. He hasn't had one, right?
He was the champ in Strikeforce.
Okay.
And then he caught bad breaks in the UFC. I always thought, and Medic also, we always thought that...
Because, he walked through...
He was deserving for a long time, but it seemed like every time he was ready to challenge for the title, at the time Anderson Silva had the belt, Anderson Silva was either hurt or just had a fight, and it was just bad timing.
Yeah.
And then when... then Weidman won the belt, and then Jacare had a fight that was against Romero, and the winner of that was going to get the title shot. And Jacare lost a close decision to Romero that night. That was also in Vegas, same night. That was a big card that Medic and I were at in Vegas. He lost a close decision to Romero, that guy is a specimen. Oof. And we don't even know. He might be going up to 205 now. Those 185 cuts for him are a lot.
I was going to say, how does that guy
But
fight?
he is...
Jesus.
He is just one athletic son of a bitch.
41 or 42?
Yeah. He's like 40, 41. It's insane.
I heard his story, and it's
he's insane.
Just late to the fight game because he spent half of his life just trying to get out.
From Cuba.
And then he went to Germany, and now he's... Wow.
He has a good story. Yeah. A lot of people, I think that Medic used to not be that big a fan of Romero back in the day, and then actually heard an interview with him and heard his story and instantly became a fan of that guy. You can't not be. And the way he fights, it's almost like, it's almost like he's a bear who's been...
Like a Bobby Lashley.
He looks like him, doesn't he?
Bobby Lashley.
But the way he fights, he's like a sedated bear. And... you just keep poking him, and then all of a sudden he wakes up and just explodes. But he's calm, and then out of nowhere, he just explodes with this athleticism and this power, and he just knocks dudes out. But his last fight was against Whitaker, and it was supposed to be a title shot, and he missed weight by like 0.2 pounds. When you're fighting for a title, you have to be exact. So when you're fighting for the 185-pound title, you have to come in at 185. They don't give you that pound and a half leeway like they do for other. If you have a non-title fight and you're fighting at 155, you can come in at 156.5 and they let it go. Title fight, you have to be right to the T, or they don't let it happen. In that case, he didn't make the weight. He had 0.2 pounds to go, and I guess he wanted to cut the weight. They give you an hour, and they wanted to do it, but the UFC wasn't going to allow him because they said he already looked pretty drained, and they thought it was going to be detrimental to his health, so they didn't let him do it.
Really?
So they kept the fight on. It wasn't for the title anymore. And Whitaker won. They gave Whitaker the decision. I don't know, man. I saw that fight many, many times. Romero won that fight. It wouldn't have mattered because he wouldn't have gotten the title anyway, but he won that fight. I mean, fuck, man, I give Whitaker a lot of credit, though. He is tough because he took bombs in that fight. He got knocked down over and over again and kept getting up. It was insane. So yeah, I mean, there's more good fights coming up. That Garden cards, that's a great card.
We gotta find a client that has seats or something like that. They're so expensive.
Oh, for a card
Actually,
like that.
I checked online the other day. It's not killer, but it's more than I would spend. It's more than I would spend. I'm not.
Well,
The
here's
garden's
thing.
so big too. When,
When
you
you
sit
go
up
to-
high, you can't.
When you go to
enjoy
these
it.
cards, if you're not sitting somewhere that's a really good view of the cage, you're gonna spend all this money to look at a screen.
Yeah.
So it kind and you know what the thing is about being live is, for me, part of the experience for me is I love listening to the Joe Rogan, the commentating on it, whoever it is. It's, obviously the pay-per-views is Joe Rogan and whoever's with him, Daniel Cormier or whoever else is sitting with it. John Anik. John Anik does the Fox Sports 1 cards, but that's part of it is listening to the commentary and listening to what they're saying.
Sure.
Me and Medic, hold a lot of pride in saying the stuff before Rogan actually says it. That's always a fun thing for us. But listening to the commentary is phenomenal when you're there and you don't get to hear it and you don't get to hear them talk about something that just happened or how the fight played out or all that other stuff. So to pay all that money, especially a card that's in Madison Square Garden, if you want good seats there, you're gonna pay thousands of dollars.
Yeah, the seats you'd want are starting at like $900.
Yeah, you're gonna
$1,200.
and if you don't pay them, you're gonna sit high and you're gonna look at the screen.
And the garden's huge.
Well,
So it's
put it
not
this way:
worth it.
we sat for the McGregor Aldo card in Vegas. That was a huge card. Had Romero and Jacare. It had Rockhold and Weidman. There was huge fights on this card. We sat in the worst seat in the house you can get. Literally, our backs were. You couldn't get any further. Our backs were up against the wall. The ceiling was above our head and the wall was against our backs, and that was the highest seat. But that was at MGM Grand, which is a very small arena. So the worst seat there is still not that bad. You're actually not that far because it's such a tiny arena. But and for that fight, we paid $350 for those seats. For the worst seat in the house, $350.
Yeah.
So, but I've been at fights where we spent the money and sat down low or the other
We
night.
went to a card in Jersey.
We went to.
Those weren't bad.
Was that UFC or was that Strikeforce?
That's
that we
when
went to?
no, that was definitely UFC. That's when another
Was that GSP? Was the main event?
I think GSP fought, but what I'm remembering more is Shane Carwin won his fight and Brock came in and made him look like a child.
Shane Carwin, Frank Mir was
Yeah.
the main event. GSP was the co-main event.
Yeah.
Shane Carwin knocked out Frank Mir in the first round.
And then Brock jumped
Brock was
in
the
a
champ.
suit or something. And it was like, oh my God. Even from like as
He
far...
was a monster,
Yeah, he was
how
so
big he
big.
was.
And Carwin's huge. Too.
Carwin's humongous. Those were the two
It was
biggest
his
guys.
girth and width.
And he was wearing a suit, and the suit looked like it was hanging on for dear life. I remember that.
That was great.
That co-main event was GSP defended the title against Dan Hardy.
Wow.
Do you remember
Whatever
that?
happened to him?
Dan Hardy. That was the co-main.
Wow.
And he had
Jeez, what was that? Like 2009, 2010?
that was a long time
11?
ago, dude. That was a long time ago. But we had good seats for that. You didn't have to look at the screen for that.
That was the
card.
100s, right? The 100s are eye level.
We were the first row of the seats that actually go up off the floor.
Yeah.
But the only thing was we weren't directly
We were
in
in
front.
the
We were
corner.
off to the side a little
Yeah.
bit. So we were in the corner of the first
Yeah.
row off the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one.
You gotta. It's a tough sport to see live if you're not angled perfectly because once it goes to the ground, everybody's watching the screen.
I gotta say that the seats that I had at the Coliseum last week for the Bellator card were fucking awesome, man.
Fantastic.
Thank you again, Chris, Lily. You're the man. Thank you for the hookup on those seats. We had so much. When you sit on the floor, dude, it's a whole nother experience. We were at a Bellator. This was a Bellator card, and the amount of like celebrities and fighters from even like for the UFC, they were
Who was
all
there?
over the floor. Paige Van Zant was right next to us.
Paige Van Zandt, cute.
Who, let me tell you something, sweetheart. She took in between fights. There was a line of dudes
Really?
in her aisle trying to get orders. She signed every single one
Good
of them.
for her.
And I was in person. She fights at 115. She's way bigger in person than you would think. I was actually surprised she was a much bigger girl than what I would think, and she was prettier in person too than she is.
Really?
Very, very pretty, really friendly, just hanging out, enjoying the fights. Who did we see in the crowd? Right next to us was Ryan Bader was there, Matt Mitrione, Henzo Gracie, Royce Gracie.
He's another nice guy, right?
I didn't get a chance to say much to him. He was like 2 seats over, like rows up from me. But he was signing autographs too. All these guys, dude. I saw Gilbert Melendez. I saw who else did I see? I can't even remember, but I saw a lot. I kept texting Chris. Oh,
Kevin James? Was Kevin James in the crowd?
Yeah, I'm sure. Sure
Probably.
he seems to like all the fights.
Yeah.
Especially he goes to the UFC fights. I think, especially because
he's a huge fan. And you say
and he's working with Mike Dolce.
Yeah,
Mike Dolce does his nutrition these days to get him to lose some of those pounds.
Yeah.
So you're working with Mike Dolce. You're gonna lose weight. Dolce will have him getting into shape soon. That guy's magical.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of guys. I can't remember them all, but
yeah, it's fun. The Coliseum, I feel like, is probably a good place to go see fights because it's a smaller event. It becomes a little unassuming, like the Garden is. So
it's nice because it's so.
And you
nearby.
know what? Bellator is like legit fights. It's not like it's not amateur hour either. They're like legit now. There was a point where UFC was the only legit one, and everything else was like. The amateurs. But, I've seen plenty of MMA, professional MMA. One of my good friends, Robbie, was a professional MMA fighter.
Robbie's a good athlete.
Robbie the specimen.
He's such a good athlete.
Like a human, I don't know, what would you even call him? The most agile human being ever. As you said, a guy cuts weight, he's at his lightest weight and he looks bigger. It's just...
Yeah, dude, that's insane. You see these guys cut weight for fights, and they look like skeletons when they get on the scale. They look like they're going to die. And I did the weight cut when I competed for the World Championships in kettlebell sport. I was competing at 180, and I weighed 190. So I was only cutting 10 pounds. But, I mean, you know me. I don't have a lot of fat to cut, so I'm really cutting water and muscle.
Yeah.
First of all, I had a really hard time doing it. I got to 184, and that last 4 pounds I had such a hard time doing. I finally made it, and the day I weighed in, I looked in the mirror, and I was laughing. I actually took a picture. I took a selfie in the mirror and posted it because I couldn't believe what I looked like. And half of my friends were texting me going, "Did you get AIDS over the weekend?" They couldn't believe what I looked like. But Robbie, first of all, I don't know how Robbie's not heavier than what he is because he weighs like the same. Actually, I think he even weighs less than me.
Yeah.
But he looks so much bigger than me. And then I'll watch him when he was fighting, and he would come to the gym and do his cuts in the sauna there with you.
Yeah. He
would come out of that thing and he'd be like, "I'm almost there. I'm at 172." I'm like, "How do you feel?" He's like, I feel, I feel thin. And I look at him. I'm like, "Dude, you look massive. Like, it's unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it." And he had it down to a science. And he would come out, make weight, and then he did like that thing with the pickles. He would eat all these pickles to suck
Robbie,
his water back up.
The interesting thing about Robbie is that we have what we call a wingspan, right? And that's like if you reach your arms out to the side, and I'm demonstrating for radio. That's good. I'm demonstrating it in person so you can see it through my voice. So if you reach your arm straight out to the side and you measure that, that's generally, if you're average, your height, right?
Right, yeah.
So Robbie's
did it
one day.
Be an extra like 7 inches
14 inches over.
14
inches. That means 7 inches past each finger. 14 inches past his height. So he looks like a human gorilla.
Yeah, his arms are crazy.
And his arms are enormous. He has this small little waist and like no abdominal area. It's like all his like chest ate half of his abdomen.
It does look like that. It looks like his chest ate his abs.
He has strong legs, but they're somewhere up by his armpits. And he's got some nasty whipping kicks. And he was good. He had a kickboxing career that was just awesome to watch. And I saw him knock out many guys. And he was on big cards. He was on what's the big fight?
He fought a Cage Warriors. He fought in?
No. I'm totally forgetting the name of it right now. But it's a big kickboxing event. They're more into.
When he was kickboxing. I thought you were talking about when he was fighting.
But
in
then
MMA.
he did the one in he did MMA in Atlantic City. What's the one?
I thought he was in Cage Warriors.
Not
wasn't
Cage
he?
Warriors. King of the Cage. Is that it?
Yeah.
Is that the one? Lou Neglia's. I don't know why I'm blanking on that. I shouldn't be blanking on that. Anyway, Robbie's got this tremendous physique, and I used to sit in with him I was like his spotter, and wraps himself in like garbage bags and towels, and would stay in the steam room for 20 minutes on. Then he would come out and rewrap him again in towels. He would sweat outside for about 20 minutes, and he'd go back in for another 20 minutes, and then sweat for another 20 minutes. And I'm not kidding you, because I actually weighed him. We did his body composition before and after. I think he lost, the most he lost was like 7 or 8 pounds in like one stint. It was crazy how he would drop weight.
And he would never have that Skeletor look where he
Not
looked,
really, no. I mean,
he looked. I would be like, what the fuck, dude?
He was sedated. It looked like he was just tired when he was done.
Tired in his face, he looked tired, but his body didn't look sucked out. He
didn't look that much different.
He looked fucking massive, dude. Yeah. It was insane.
They're changing the ways, and it's funny because I've been listening to different nutrition coaches like Mike Dolce, and then there's a current guy for UFC. I wrote his name down. I forgot who it was. Lockhart? George Lockhart?
Yeah.
So I was listening to Dolce talk about it. I was listening to Lockhart talk about it. And Dolce's really progressive, even though I kind of think, we were talking about this the other day, he's getting out of like doing a lot of work.
He's going Hollywood now. From what I heard, and I don't know if this is, you're only going by what you hear, is that the UFC has this performance center now that's in Vegas, and that's where Dolce used to live. And they wanted to bring him on as like a full-time, like when these fighters need to make weight for the fight, you're going to be the guy. And from what I heard, the money to him wasn't worth it. But Dolce moved to Jersey. He just bought a house on the Jersey Shore on the beach. Yeah. And he's definitely doing stuff with Hollywood, like getting Hollywood actors in shape for movie roles and stuff. But I know Kevin James is with him, and there's other stuff. He doesn't announce it now because I think he's supposed to keep
Dolce
it on the wraps for a little while.
One of the most, I would say one of the most, but maybe the most successful nutritionist MMA fighters.
Yeah,
meaning
100%.
That all his fighters have always hit weight. He's
100% make. He's never had a guy,
and he's taken guys from higher divisions, like a 155, and dropped them down to 145 successfully with no issues, and the fighters have stayed there with no problems. Yeah. So he's one.
And he doesn't believe in like the water suck that all these guys do, and the saunas and the steam rooms. He doesn't do any of that. He promotes just healthy eating. Eat right. Get your weight. It shouldn't be this crash course like right before your fight. He does it on like, he'll start the weight, what they would consider the weight cut, but he starts it so far in advance, and really all it is just eating properly and bringing yourself down slowly and steadily. So at the last week before your fight, you don't have to do this 15-pound drop in a couple days where these guys come in and they feel like shit at fight time.
There's actually a text for the nutrition cert that I've gone through is Precision Nutrition, which is really it's a great organization, and they worked with GSP back in the day. That was like their biggest MMA client. But when you cut weight, it's slightly different if you're a physique athlete or if you're a fighter, or a wrestler or kettlebells. Because performance is much more on the line, where if you're just posing, okay, that's performance. Yes, I get it, but it's not the same. So there is slightly different ways to do it, but I think for years they were taking things that you should be in season year round. That's the way I always look at it. Like, you should be pretty fit if you're a professional fighter.
I agree.
And you're a professional athlete, whether you play baseball, football, soccer, or you're a mixed martial arts fighter, you should be in shape year-round. Yeah. I don't understand how these guys get so out of shape and then pull themselves back in. You should be in shape and treating your body like a temple year-round. And while I might not agree with, a Tom Brady, it sounds like he has a good grasp on what works for him.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's why he's 41 and still... Was he 41 or 42? He's still romping.
He's 40, I think.
Maybe 40. He's still romping on everybody, and he's still performing at the highest level because there's no off season for nutrition and diet. And what I really like about Dolce, because Dolce is someone you turned me on to, is that he says the body is designed to live to over 100 years old.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
like,
he talks about it all
we're
the time.
talking about getting you healthy and having a long life first, and then on top of that, your profession is a fighter, and we're going to go and teach you how to eat to be an effective fighter, how to bring your weight down gradually so you're not sacrificing performance to make a weight cut. And that I think is going to be the future of how nutritionists treat fighters. But
I hope so. It should be.
Who knows? Because, like I said, that other Lockhart has taken over. He says he has 200 fighters and he wants to get everyone in the UFC under him. So maybe they're just going to say, like, this is the nutritionist we work with. Forget who you have.
We'll see. It seems like I'm sure these guys can still pick and choose who they want to be with, but I think that the UFC tried, with Dolce, they tried to make it where you're the guy, and this is who these guys are going to come to for each and every fight. But they wanted to go the Dolce route because of his success rate. And you take, for example, you take a guy that he used to work with was Johnny Hendricks, who used to fight at 170. He was doing his nutrition with Dolce at the time, and not only did Johnny Hendricks, he always made weight at 170. He became the champ. He had the fight with GSP, which GSP won the fight. I'm putting my fingers up to,
Air
saying,
quotes.
I'm doing air quotes. You ask anybody, Johnny Hendricks won that fight. But anyway, GSP retired, and then he fought Robbie Lawler for the vacant belt, and he won it. He's the champ at 170 at the time, and he would be ripped at 170 pounds. He decided he didn't want to work with Dolce anymore for whatever reason. I'm sure it's money. Dolce's not cheap when it comes to that. He probably wants a lot of money, and I don't think that Hendricks thought it was he needed to. I think he thought he could do it on his own. Anyway, lost the belt, started having trouble making 170, decided to move up to 185, and missed weight 3 times straight for 185 pounds. This is a guy that when he worked with Dolce was ripped at 170, and now he's missing, I think one fight he missed 185 by 7 pounds. That's insanity, dude.
Inexcusable.
15 pounds heavier.
You're a professional. You can't do that.
It's unbelievable. So that goes to show you what a guy who knows what he's talking, a guy like Dolce, if you listen to what these guys can do for you, you don't have to do this crazy crash diet or all these crazy extreme ways that people will try to do in order to lose weight. You can do it a healthy, good way. And the best part is when you do it that way, your body doesn't suffer where... So using myself, for instance, when I did compete in kettlebells, because I had such a hard time with those last 4 pounds, the last 2 days, I was like crash coursing to get my body to make it. And I made the weight, but I think my performance suffered a little bit. I felt drained, which normally I feel very energized all the time, but cutting that way, I always said to my coach Ken, if I compete again, I'm going to fight at the next weight class up, which I think after 180, it's either 195 or 200, but I don't think it's worth it. Yeah, I'll be competing against guys way bigger than me, but I think for how I feel, I think it's more worth it. I don't think it was worth cutting the weight because I didn't feel myself. I didn't feel as strong and I didn't feel as energized.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be said for just eating right. I mean, you've known me for 15 years. I might gain 5 pounds, lose 5 pounds, but for the most part, do I look pretty much the same always?
Yeah.
I don't change. When I say diet, I mean the way I eat, and not diet as in like I go on a diet, but I eat the same way, and I have been for the last 20 years of my life, and my body stays the same, my energy stays the same, and the way I feel stays the same. I always feel good. I get good sleep. I feel good in the gym every day. I feel strong every day. I don't have these mood swings up and down. I just stay the same for 20 years. And one thing that has always stayed the same has been my diet. It's just always been the same way. And I think that fighters or any other athlete, professional, amateur, whatever, could benefit from doing the same thing. Not trying crash diets, not, off season, gain weight, in season, cut weight, like just stay right around where you're supposed to be, and you'll benefit from it.
Yeah, that's a strong mindset for longevity.
Yeah, and that's
And
the
not
other
just
thing.
like living longer, it's like having a longer fight career if you're talking about a fighter.
Everything.
I don't,
The body takes such a beating when you do that to your body. These up and down cuts and these crash diets. It's not good. It's not sustainable, and it's not good for your body. Your body will suffer.
Yeah. Wow.
Dude.
Covered a lot of things.
Fucking longest one, dude. What are we at? A minute and an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Jesus, we've been getting good. That flew by.
Covered a lot of ground.
We did.
Talked about a lot of things.
So today, obviously, we went away from our usual nutrition and exercise, but we did say when we talked about doing this that it wasn't just gonna be exercise, nutrition, the gym, that whole world. We were going to talk about other things that we're passionate about. So MMA was high up on the list that we're going to talk about. But the next podcast will be back to what we talk mostly about, which will be nutrition and exercise. And I'm pretty sure we're going to have a guest for the next one.
We're going to have, I'll give everyone a little taste of what we have to come. We have Mike Majakis, who's a professor and also a longtime trainer. He's going to come in and talk about everything.
When he comes on, I'm preparing you guys.
standpoint.
You're going to hear very little from me and Ross. We're going to ask a couple questions, but we're going to let this guy do his thing because be prepared, guys, to be mesmerized by what this guy will talk to you about when it comes to nutrition. The guy is a genius, so that's going to be a great show. So if you're into nutrition, that's one not to miss. What else do we have? Shackles is coming
Shackles,
on.
same
thing, except instead of the nutrition, like when it comes to strength training.
And just mindset,
Dude.
and it's just got some great
programming,
stories.
numbers with programming.
Yeah.
Another one where I just want to ask him questions and let him go to, and he's funny too. So another one not to miss because he's super smart and he knows his shit, but he's funny. He likes to have a good time, and he's not afraid to rip on things that he thinks are wrong with the gym. He's like me where it comes to if he sees something in the gym he doesn't like, he'll let you know. He thinks what you're doing is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
He's not scared to tell you. He'll take the Bosu ball out from underneath your feet and he'll probably smack you in the face with it.
I have a friend of mine, this guy Freddie, who's a CrossFit coach and a wrestling coach at the local high school where he lives. And he's a great guy, and he gets CrossFit, he gets other modalities of training, and, he has a strong wrestling background. And, I've been talking to him a couple times in the past few weeks, and he said he would love to come on and,
Good, I would love it.
kind of plead the case of, CrossFit and what it's all about. And
Now, will he be okay with somebody like myself
whatever
who's
you
going
want.
to go hard at him with, you know my opinion on it, so...
And that's why I think he's great for it. He's a guy that you're gonna like a lot. You might disagree with everything he says, but you're gonna like him as a person. And I think that's always important. That in a world where everybody seems to be going on one side or the other, and not getting along, we can disagree with people and still say, "Oh my goodness, this trainer at our gym, I don't get their training style. I don't like it. What are they doing?" But they're an awesome person, and I like them as a person.
Yeah, all the time. Half the people I see, I love them to death. But I look at the training, I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, so, you can...
and I'm always going to be,
thing.
me, I'm always going to be willing to, I'll confront you about if I see what you're doing is something I don't agree with or something that I think is outright dumb, I'll be no problem. I'll ask you about it.
And we have ideas of doing this. This MMA episode was a lot of fun to do, and it like you said, it flew by, and it's our longest one. And there's a lot to talk to because it's something we're both very passionate about. So hopefully we can get a guy like Mike Stein or some other
Mike Stein would love to do it.
Coaches,
he would love to do it, and it would be great to get his, not only what he does now with his school and teaching kids, but I want to hear his stories about. I've heard them a million times, and I ask him stuff every time.
I'd like to hear him.
Every time I train him, I ask him more stories about when he was on the show, and it's awesome. Amazing when he tells you what happens behind the scenes on that show. But it would be cool to have him on the podcast to let you guys hear what it's like when you're on that show behind camera and. When he got eliminated, I think he lost in the quarterfinals or whatever, but when he got eliminated, they don't send you home because you're not allowed to tell who won the show. So you can't be seen by public. So I'll let him tell the story, but they put him in a separate house and they give you an expense account to go do what you want. And he's got some stories, dude. It is unbelievable what he'll talk to you about.
That's incredible.
But he'll be great. Like I said earlier, Shawnee, we're going to have Sean Levy on, and he'll talk to us about his...
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu expert, nutritional guru.
He can talk.
He has an incredible story, too, and
he does.
I hope he shares it with us. We'll let him go into it. But
I think he'll be open about it.
Yeah, just an incredible, inspiring story, and that's one of the things we're trying to do is pull people on that have good stories themselves. And Mike Majakis, Professor Mike
Great
Majakis,
story.
has a fantastic story.
Great story. Had some health issues that he pretty much...
Shackles, what an upbringing. I was talking to him one day, and once again, he'll probably share that with us. And I have some other guests of people who have done some incredible physical feats, and we're looking to get them on the show and build this thing and just gain some momentum. So. Thank you.
I hope I can, I've texted him a couple times and I got to actually speak to him more and more about it. But the next time my coach, Ken Blackburn's in town, I really want to get him on and he can talk to you about the world of,
not even kettlebells, just
everything. The guy, it's crazy, this guy's background. He's worked with so many professional athletes and so many MMA fighters. He trains... Miles Jury, Johnny Dotson. He's done some stuff with Cowboy Cerrone.
That's a 3-hour podcast right
Oh,
there.
my God. And the shit that when you hear this guy talk about training and kettlebells and all the stuff that he does, it's a whole nother life. He's one of the few people that when he talks, I'm all ears. I listen to everything he has to tell me, and it's Bible to me.
And I tell you, I still want to do, with the crowded room of some of our best buds, an MMA episode, pre-fight, you, Medic, myself, and a couple of the crew in the background just to add for some atmosphere, like a YouTube
which
live.
we were supposed to do for the last fight. It just didn't happen. But we will have it. It will happen.
Get it going.
It will happen.
Yeah.
So we'll wait for there to be another good card.
This is such a good episode. I think we got to play the intro music as the outro music. Can you cue that up?
Of course we can.
So can you tell us again who performed this?
Keith Hilly. I'm going to text you after and just let you know that not only did we play it to intro, we played it on the outro.
Yeah,
so
I think it's so good because we don't have any sponsors to plug. I mean, Brittany's Tonic CBD oil.
Keith Hilly. This is a Keith Hilly original.
Yeah.
Get ready, guys. Listen in because this thing rocks. Yeah, buddy. So until next time, guys, thanks for listening. Eat proper, train hard, get your results. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.